Well, thank you for coming. So tonight, we did this last year as well. We call it Stand Up 7A for the parents. And it's just an opportunity to hear multiple speakers from an array of different areas to talk to you guys about different things going on in school, how we support our students, what our students or children are going through, and how we can help them. So, first of all, the agenda for the evening. So, this is the agenda. We have multiple guest speakers, including myself. Mr. Cardinal will speak about developmental assets. Vonnie Johnson, she's one of our senior students who's in Bridge. We'll talk about her perspective. Dr. Johnson from the Institute of Growth Development. Mr. Jeff McLean, is that hard to say your name? From the Ovation Company. And then you have an opportunity with all of us up here, along with some of our high school counselors and one of our middle school counselors, to ask questions as well. So the whole point of this week, Stand Up 7A week, is really about bullying. And really larger than just bullying, it's kind of about how do we teach our kids to be kinder and nicer and more accepting of other students. So I figured to put a definition of bullying. Bullying is unwanted, aggressive behavior among school-aged children that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. The behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated over time. Bullying includes actions such as making threats, spreading rumors, attacking someone physically or verbally, and excluding someone from a group on purpose. So this occurs. I don't want to say it doesn't occur at our school. It's a reality in all schools, and it's something we're trying to be proactive about. We're trying to help our students. We have multiple things we do throughout the school year, which I'll talk about in my portion. But the larger picture is really how are we teaching students or children to be good people? And I think along with that comes less bullying, less being mean, and all these things within the definition of bullying. So I did want to start with a quick video, if you don't mind. It's about a 1.5, 2-minute video.
No, I don't know why. She's just no longer our friend.
Oh my God, she's so fat, she's so ugly, that bitch, that slut.
And she said, at least I'm not black.
It's because I have like baby hair, and since it's dark, that I look like a boy.
People used to call me fat, lazy, unworthy, stupid, faggot, gay.
It made me feel, just like they said, that I was worthless, I had no reason to live.
Then they made a chat about me, a chat on group message, just to talk about how much they hate me.
I just tried to keep deleting her, and I even blocked her a few times, and she just kept making accounts just to keep bullying me over the web.
Everything that I trusted them with was now public for everyone to see, for everyone to know. And I can't go in and delete it. I can't say this is spam, this isn't okay.
And I would cut my wrist, thinking that one day I'll have enough courage to split my vein.
And it kept happening over and over again. Sometimes by different people or the same one.
They used to catch me at the gate and beat me up. Just wail on me, like 5 different kids, stomp on me, kick on me.
She held a pair of scissors against my neck and threatened to murder me. And in that moment, I thought I was gonna die.
I believe that bullying is a crime.
I have the courage
And I have the power to make a difference.
instead of bringing people down.
We want to encourage
And empower
Everyone we meet,
With our words,
and with our actions.
Whether it's in person
Or online.
So the reality is a lot of our students, even in La Cañada, or whatever the school, they're going through a lot of the same things. There's students being mean to each other, there's students bullying each other, and You know, the whole reason why we don't call it necessarily anti-bully week, we call stand up 7-8 week, is because part of this is really standing up for yourself and telling someone, students around people who are being bullied, to stand up and tell someone, and it's hard. I don't want to try and say that it's easy for our students to be able to talk to an adult, tell them they're being harassed or bullied or picked on. But as you saw by some of those statistics, we need more people to advocate for our students. You know, our counseling offices in high school and middle school are packed with students, whether it's anxiety, whether it's bullying, whether it's different pressures that we have. We need to find ways to help them. And, you know, the one thing I keep telling people, this is stand-up 7-8 week, but it really is hopefully teaching the students skills this week that will go on for the rest of the school year, the rest of their middle school and high school career, and beyond. And why do students bully? You know, you see many reasons. These are just reasons I came up with that I know of, just being over disciplined for many years at a different school and at the high school here, now being at the middle school for 2 years. These are all different things that come up on a regular basis. So you see words like revenge, fears of inferiority, anger, difficulties at home, envy. These are all the reasons that students are hiding behind things to be mean to others, to make themselves feel better. So, you know, the thing we keep talking about is stand up and stand out. You know, our students have to be able to stand up for themselves. If they can't stand up for themselves, then hopefully we have a friend or a companion or a person on their side that will stand up for them. So one of the things it leads us into is Challenge Success. So this is a program you'll be hearing a lot more about as we go on this year and hopefully many more years to come. It's a Stanford-based organization that we partnered with the middle school specifically and with the high school, working independently but also together, depending on what the issues are, and finding ways to lower some of these stresses on our students, make our students more well-balanced, more well-rounded, and hopefully the side effect of that with students being nicer, less stresses, not being mean to others, and which will result in some of the less bullying, less mean behavior. As we go on over this year and hopefully years to come, through Challenge Success, it's kind of a forum for us to start making changes in our school. To find different ways, whatever it is, taking everything, all the possibilities, and kind of condensing them into something tangible for us to do to help our students, whether it's minimizing homework, changing our grading system, having more parent information nights. We've come up with a wide array of things, and hopefully as we move forward, you hear a lot more about this and how we hopefully make changes. So what else are we doing? You know, we have a monthly focus on developmental assets in our homeroom. Our students do different activities based on the month. This month is family support. So each teacher in their homeroom class go through different activities at least once during the month to focus on whatever the developmental asset is in their for that month. Along with that, our student of the month has even changed. It used to be really solely focused on academics. We've combined some of the academics this year in our homerooms the student of the month is now more focused around developmental assets, how we work with our students, how our students work with their peers, depending on what the asset is for that month. Now, we had our first one last month, and it seemed like a lot better vibe. The students seemed a lot happier, and I think the students in class feel less stressed that they have to perform at a higher level. It's just one small thing, but I think it makes a big difference. Our small school structure, which all of you guys are familiar with, digital citizenship in their homerooms. Our students are all, in each core class, are going through different digital citizenship lessons of how to behave online. You know, our students have been thrown with all this technology, yet there's no guiding force of how to behave. You know, Ms. Baldwin did an activity the other day in her class about how you communicate on email. What's proper right, what's not proper right? How do you spell things out? Do you put just like 2 letters to symbolize a word, depending on who you're writing to, how you communicate? And all those things our students don't know. They think an email is like a text message. And there's a difference in how you communicate with each other. Is different whether it's a text message or phone with your friend. And our students, I think that's a very blurred line for our students. So we're trying to do some digital citizenship around that. Also, our student recognitions have changed. Like I talked about, our Student of the Month has changed. We'll also eliminated 7th grade awards. I think it was an unneeded stress for our students. Our teachers were completely on board with that. And then our 8th grade awards, actually tomorrow, when all of our 8th graders are participating in a day, which we'll talk about later, our 8th grade teachers are all meeting with me, and we're going to try and find a way to revamp our awards. And to be less, I think there still has to be some academic focus, but focus on different things as well. And having a clear-cut system of how we recognize the students and why we recognize our students, and not just blindly give awards for different reasons, but really have a systematic approach of why we do it. And the last thing is on a monthly basis, our counselors are going into classrooms and doing lessons. And with that, I had the opportunity to observe Allison Dahlback the other day, who's our 7th grade counselor, do a lesson. And I'd like to just share some of it with you, if you guys don't mind. It started off with the 7th grade class who walked in, they sat down, and Allison read this story to them, which I'd like to read to you if you have a moment. There once was a little boy who had a bad temper. His father gave him a bag of nails and told him that every time he lost his temper, he must hammer a nail into the back of the fence. The first day, the boy had driven 37 nails into the fence. Over the next few weeks, as he learned to control his anger, the number of nails hammered daily gradually dwindled down. He discovered it was easier to hold his temper than to drive those nails into the fence. Finally, the day came when the boy didn't lose his temper at all. He told his father about it, and the father suggested that the boy now pull out one nail for each day that he was able to hold his temper. The days passed, and the young boy was finally able to tell his father that all the nails were gone. The father took his son by the hand and led him to the fence. He said, "You have done well, my son, but look at the holes in the fence. The fence will never be the same. When you say things in anger, they leave a scar just like this one. You can put a knife in a man and draw it out. It won't matter how many times you say I'm sorry, the wound is still there." The little boy then understood how powerful his words were. He looked up at his father and said, "I hope you can forgive me, Father, for the holes I put in you." "Of course I can," said the father. So the lesson started with that story, which I thought was a pretty impactful story. Short, to the point, had good visuals that students could understand. So then the lesson went on to, the whole lesson was about social development. So after the story, what they did is two students took a piece of duct tape, and they both had to hold one end, they could switch hands, and they had to tie a knot in duct tape. So they tied the knot, and then the question was asked to the students, what are some of the knots that you have in you? So what are some of the things that cause some of these stresses? Homework, tests, technology, family, school life, circumstances, politics, sleep, disruption of routines, friendships, misunderstandings, death, relationships, siblings, moving, money, sick relatives, health, time management, family dynamics, and future. This was in one class period with 36 7th graders. And that's not even half the list. I didn't want to go on too long. So as you see, our students go through a lot of stresses. So once they tied the knot, they had to switch with a partner. And they said, now you guys have to untie the knot. So the students untied the knot. Now, what does the knot look like? Now you untie the knot, but there's still wrinkles in the knot. Right? So the students were talking about, what do these knots look like inside of you? So when you're feeling these things, what do you feel? Butterflies, nerves, fighting, confusion, anger, eating habits, self-harm, withdrawal, depression, personality change, increase and decrease in eating, attendance changes, risk-taking behaviors. And so, I'm going through this really fast. This is a whole hour lesson that Allison did wonderfully. And then the next thing they talked about is how do we help? So when we see our students or we feel some of these things, what do? So some of the suggestions, take a breath, think positive, talk to someone, walk away, be a friend, give a hug, so on and so forth. And I think our students really like this. I think it was very tangible, it was very understanding. We gave our students different perspective of what they should be looking at in their friends to try and help them. I just thought it was a great lesson. Those type of lessons are being done both in 7th and 8th grade by both Ms. Dahlback and Ms. Brasha. It's just one more thing that we're doing to try and relieve some of these stresses on our students. And then today, our 9-12 bridge kids, or 11th and 12th grade bridge kids, which you see a picture of that from today, they worked with our 7th graders. They had an assembly in here in their social science classes, groups of anywhere from 36 to 72 on Wednesday and Thursday. And they did a whole little skit. The students had an opportunity to ask questions to the high school students. And this is completely run by students. Mr. Williams did a brief introduction. He left. I stayed for the first 30 seconds, then I left. I popped back in and out. But when you walk in, students grasp students better than any adult. And when they hear the stories from their 11th and 12th grade peers, it really is a different feeling in the room than it would be from me telling them about, just one of the questions I heard was, does bullying change in high school? If there's a bully, what do I do? Who should I tell on our campus? And our students were sitting right on the stage, on the edge of the stage, having an open conversation with 7th graders about this. And I think that's something that you can't force, and it naturally happens with them. Avani Johnson, who was speaking tonight, was one of those kids today who was speaking with our 7th graders. Then they transitioned to the North Gym, where they had small group discussions about bullying, about being nice, about being mean. They had an opportunity to write a letter to me, which I'm in the process of reading through, about how they think the school could be better, what things we can do to change. And then they also write a letter to themselves, which we did last year as well. And they put it in an envelope, I keep it in my office, of where they want to be at the end of the year. What their goals are, what kind of person do they want to be. And last year, as I will do this year, I mailed those letters home. One thing we did have to work on is how to address an envelope. We had about 15% that were sent back to the mail last year. So this year, we did that part in the classroom. So they learned how to do that. But if your student doesn't know how to mail a letter, talk to your child. So we went through that in class. Some of the suggestions for students, I took some from last year as well, because I wasn't here yesterday. And, this is some of the suggestions from this year and last year. Slides from the 3rd floor, pie, fruit punch, and cookies for free, shoot confetti everywhere, longer lunch period, cheaper food, and half days or 3-day weeks. So those are some of the suggestions, right? But the more realistic suggestions were some of these. More supervision at lunch and break, and we're working on that. We're trying to get people out there. Our teachers and our staff is spread thin, but we realize we have to be out there at lunch and break. One of them came up as PBFH, Prevent Bullying from Happening Club. Positive outlets like sports, arts, which we do have, and getting more people involved is a great suggestion. One of the ones from last year I really liked was the 10-second rule. If it can't be changed in 10 seconds, then don't say it. So if it's something you're going to tell somebody that's going to hurt their feelings, and you can't just take it back in 10 seconds, we should really think about that. Hearing student stories help, like today. Our high school students had an opportunity to talk to them. Anonymous box to express their feelings. So it was nice. I read through about probably 75, 80 letters today. And that was just like off some letters from today, some letters from last year. And we're trying to do some of these things. If you can't follow along, we're going to have the slideshow on the website along with, we're filming the whole thing so you can watch it as well from home. And what can we do? What are we doing? What can we do better? It's normal things. And we're trying to do our job. We hope you're trying to do your job as parents. And being here tonight is obviously one of those things. And I'm trying to find programs for our students to really just make us better, make them better. One more short video, I promise, and then move on for the next speaker. This is actually, I think it was produced by a 2nd or 3rd grader. So it's a pretty cool video that I found on YouTube. And just expressing to our students that think big, don't settle. And we really want our students to see the bigger picture of who they are as 7th and 8th graders and who they'll become in high school eventually in college and in their futures. And the most important thing is really just creating well-balanced students. And this is a big issue we have here in La Cañada, is our students are spread so thin, and there's so many stresses put on them with school, with the expectations of age, with the expectations of college. I was talking to 11-year-olds a couple weeks ago when I was a student for a day, and they were talking about college, and they can't get a bad grade in their math class in 7th grade as 11-years, or a B because they want to go to Stanford, or I think it was Berkeley actually. Their parents went to Berkeley. It's those type of things that 11 and 12-year-old kids shouldn't be talking about. And one of the questions I asked them is that, when do you guys have time to gossip, be girls? They befriended me as a 7th grade student. And, oh no, we have to go study in between break. And, we have to make sure our students have time to be students, be kids, to have fun, while balancing everything else. So, my big goal this year is really finding ways to make students more well-balanced. And then there's a bunch of information you can find about anti-bullying, about standing up, and all these different things we're talking about today. Like I said, this will be on the webpage. Next, done with me. Avani Johnson, she is a 12th grade student here. She's a Bridge student, very involved in different things. She just shared some of her story, along with some of the things that Bridge is, and some of the things just from a student's perspective, rather than hear from me, hear from somebody else. So Avani Johnson, if you could welcome her.
Last year and this year, I shared my story with some of the 7th graders, or if it was last year, the 8th graders now. So I'm going to share it with you now. I probably will cry, so I'm just warning you. It's starting now. This is fun. Okay. So I don't really know when it started. I would think it started probably in 4th grade. I figure it's better if I cry now because I'm just going to have my system. But it started with just comments geared towards my weight, I would say. It was things like, oh, you're fat, or oh, you're ugly. And at that time, I just kind of thought it was teasing because that's what all my friends would say. They'd be like, oh, you're so sensitive, you're so dramatic. We're just teasing you, like, get over it. And they would say things like, look, you're just going to get so sensitive and I don't want to be your friend anymore. So I kind of just dealt with it because I thought, well, it's better than not having anybody. It's better than having really bad friends or friends that aren't really there for you than not having anybody. So as I kind of progressed in 5th grade, a new girl kind of, I guess, came into our friend group as there was like this increasing notion that you had to be popular to be happy. And so a lot of my friends kind of gravitated towards that. Well, I really didn't. I didn't care to be popular. I was happy-ish where I was, and that was good enough for me. But they just brought in this girl that for some reason, I guess we'll call her Stacy because I'm just not kissing that girl. But she was just really terrible to me. She'd corner me in bathrooms during class. She'd pull me out of class and just whisper things in my ear about me being unattractive or me not being smart, or just really mean things. She'd yell across the playground like, hey, Avani, nobody likes you, like this is why you're standing alone. Or she'd yell across the crowd, like I didn't even know people said these words in 5th grade, but apparently they do. She'd be like, hey, Avani, F you, full expletive. I guess that's it for you guys. But so I just kind of dealt with it, and at the same time, I isolated myself from a lot of my friends and a lot of my family, because at home I just had a nanny that wasn't that supportive, so I felt like I didn't have anybody at school, I didn't have anybody at home, and I didn't tell my parents because I felt very ashamed of what was going on. I didn't want them to have like this extra burden, and I didn't want them to feel like they were guilty, which I think is like, or they had some part in it or a role in it, which I think often tends to be a big issue with kids. Like they don't want to push their problems on their parents when their parents are already doing so many things for them. And so I kind of just sat with it and let it happen to me. I remember one experience where, thank you. I remember one experience where I actually invited my bully to my 10th birthday party, and it was like a sleepover, and we'd gone to the mall, and we got back home, and like the entire time, like would be like, oh, Lonnie, why don't you sit in the back seat, and we'll all sit up here, like we would go to stores and be like, no, we want to do this, you can go by yourself. And just things that a girl doesn't really want to hear on her birthday party. And that night, I don't remember what led up to it, but I remember going upstairs and all my friends had locked themselves in my room with a chair and I couldn't get in. And I just sat there for 10 minutes listening to them say, such a loser, why would she invite us to this? I can't believe we actually came, that was such a terrible decision. And at the same time, the same girl would like, I don't know if it was her actually, it could have been somebody else, but at that time, like, social media was just starting to rise, but email was like the really popular thing. Like, if you had an email, you were cool. So a lot of us had emails, and I would start receiving emails from people that I didn't know. Like, they created the emails specifically just to send me nasty things, and they'd accuse me of coming in between friendships and things that I hadn't been doing. And so it was just like I couldn't get away from it at school. I couldn't get away from it at home, and I really had no outlet to get away from because my friends had all shifted to this completely different girl, and they didn't defend me, they didn't support me. And I would just kind of go to school, and like my attitude towards school completely changed. I love to learn. I still love to learn, but at that time I didn't want to go to school. You can ask the nurse at PCR. I was in there every day saying I had a stomach ache. But I think I just, like I said, I isolated myself completely. And as it progressed, I started just to distance myself from that group as well, because I realized that they weren't doing anything for me but making me feel bad about myself, and I didn't want to be put in that situation anymore. And thankfully, I have like very observant parents, which a lot of students don't, and they noticed that kind of like distance that I had from people, and I remember walking into a classroom after school because I had forgotten my pencil bag, and my parents were sitting there talking to my teacher about what was going on. And for some students that wouldn't maybe not be the right decision, but for me it was, because I would never have been able to do that on myself. I'm a very independent person, I think, and I don't like to usually put my issues on other people, so I would just kind of sit there and take it instead of confronting people about it. And so that kind of stopped it temporarily. But it's like 7th grade, I'd say. It kind of bled into 7th grade. Luckily, it wasn't as bad, but in 7th grade, I would like post videos on like Facebook of just like me hanging out with friends or photos, and I'd get a message from Stacy saying, "Why are you doing it if you can't do it right? Like, this doesn't look good this doesn't make you look good. Like, you just look like a loser. Like, stop." And I remember the first day of 7th grade, just being so terrified about lunch. Like, that was like my biggest worry, was that I was going to go to lunch and I was going to have no friends because they'd all want to hang out with the popular people from LCE or PCY, and that was just like, and even in 9th grade to an extent, I think that a lot of people don't realize that the experiences you have in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade like bleed into your life in such small and subtle ways. Like, if somebody said this in Bridge when they were telling their story, and I identified with it so much that I didn't even realize I had it before. If I am not explicitly asked out to lunch, and it's just a group, I won't go, because I don't think they want me there. If I'm explicitly not asked out to go shopping or something, I won't go, because I don't know that they want me there. Like, I'm still very insecure about the relationships I have with people. And I think that even some of my, like, in the last like year and a half, I've formed really close relationships with 2 girls specifically who like were that popular group. And sometimes I still feel like I need their validation just because I don't know that they really want me there, that they really like me. It's just like I'm just part of the crowd. And I don't think that I fully got closure. I don't think I still fully have closure, especially because one of the things that was said to me by Stacy in 6th grade was, I wouldn't care if you died, might as well do it already. And at the time, like, I think for any 5th grader, that's really hard to hear. But, I mean, it's going to be hard to hear for anybody. But as a 5th grader that's already very insecure about who they were and already very insecure about the things said to them, that, like, destroys you and really makes you question a lot of the things you do. I remember actually thinking about that and being like, well, would anybody care if I disappeared? Well, would anybody care if I died? And I didn't ever like contemplate it, but it was like, it's always been a thought that kind of like revolves in my mind, and like I just spin around it. And I think that's probably why I'm so insecure about a lot of my friendships and my relationships, because it's It's like, if I wasn't in this equation, would they even notice? Or if I wasn't even here getting lunch with them, would they notice? I think that I put myself in like that third wheel a lot because of what was said to me, because I don't want to make relationships like that in case it happens again. And I think actually, like, telling my story last year, first period, was the first time I had talked about it in a long time. And I just remember, like, breaking down in tears, much like I am right now. But just breaking down in tears in front of, like, a bunch of 7th graders, which I'm sure is the lowest you can possibly get. And, like, that brought closure to me in a very weird way, because it was the first time I had discussed it, and I kind of always just, like, let it sink in, and, like, I didn't want to talk about it, I didn't want to acknowledge it, because I didn't want her to have that power over me. And, like, I always knew there was, like, that lasting effect, but I never wanted to actually, like, see that and see what she's done to me. And, like, acknowledging that and having, last year there were 25 people bridge, 25 people that supported me so much, showed me who a good friend is, what a good friend means, what it means to have good relationships. And then this year, for the first time in I think 7 years, I actually have a class with the girl that bullied me. It's been a very long time, and in a weird, very weird way, that I think has given me the most closure. Because I realized that she talks to me and she laughs with me, and like we laugh together, and I just realized that I've held so much resentment towards her for the last 7 years because of the things she's done to me, but she doesn't remember any of it. And if she doesn't remember any of it, then why should I? Why should I keep living with those words going around in my head day in, day out if she doesn't remember the words she said to me? Because if she's not being held back by it, I don't want to be held back by it anymore. And that's kind of like, in an odd sense, even though I've never gotten the apology I want, that I've never gotten like the hug from the friends that didn't defend me that I wanted, hearing that, like figuring out that she never gave me any of that actually has given me the most closure, because it finally gives me the opportunity to move on with my life and to find like inner happiness, as cheesy as that is, and just kind of like live without those words always constantly berating me. So. Okay, so I'm in Bridge. I joined it last year. You try out as either a sophomore or a junior. And so what Bridge is it's a peer counseling group. This year there's 23 of us. It's 11th and 12th graders. There's 4 11th graders, and the rest are seniors. But what we kind of try to do most is first and foremost for a peer counseling group to the high schoolers. So we want to be that support network, and we want to be people that they know that they can just come talk to without having to take people's advice that they don't necessarily want. We do offer advice if they want it, but we just want to make them feel the most comfortable. And I think part of the way we do that is everything that's said is 100% confidential. We will never break confidentiality. That is one of the most things that is most important to us, because we know how hard it can be to talk to an adult figure. And instead, we're giving them that opportunity to come talk to a student that actually knows what they're going through and can relate to it in some aspect. Besides just peer counseling, we also do multiple fundraisers throughout the year. We have the Halloween dance, which is coming up, and it's really fun. All the proceeds go to the Mountain Shadow Foundation. We have St. Baldrick's, and then we do assemblies like the assembly we put on yesterday and today. And then last year, we also did a drunk driving assembly for the upperclassmen, which proved to be really impactful. So we're really proud of all the things we do on campus. So the assembly, we had 3 portions. We had the skit, and then we had the Q&A, and then we had the part in the North Gym where we broke up into about groups of 5 and chatted with just them about what's going on at the school and how they think bullying can be prevented. So the skit, it was really important to us that it wasn't like the conventional and traditional, this is bullying, you shouldn't bully, it's bad. Because we feel like at this point, kids already know that, or they at least should know that. So for that reason, we kind of wanted to have something that had like a shock factor and was actually very realistic. So we recorded a series of insults, and we played it for them in pitch black. And they kind of just had to sit there and listen to what it's like to be in the mind of the victim. And I think that was really impactful. Like I talked to a few girls after, and they said that they weren't expecting that at all. And those words have been said to them, and they've been said by them, and it had this sense of realism that some assemblies just don't. Then we moved on to the Q&A. It was about 15 minutes, We really wanted them to get an opportunity to kind of ask us questions that they generally just can't ask adults because they feel like adults don't understand. And the common thread that I kind of took from that was that there's just a general lack of like basic, I don't want to say education, but about what bullying is, how it occurs. They wanted the definitions of like what is bullying, how do you define it from bullying from teasing, and so we kind of told them about that. We also recounted our own stories. I did mine yesterday, and one today. We had another student, Lauren, who did it a lot. And last year and this year, I've gotten so many people coming up to me and saying that's the most impactful part, because what happens when there's other assemblies with just lecturers, which can be great, is that they don't get that personal aspect, and that was really important to us, that they got that like personal, emotional aspect, especially for people that were in 7th grade not too long ago. So what I've heard in our smaller groups was that bullying today, which I definitely agree with, is like it's moved away from the physical kind of mindset that a lot of people associate bullying with. I think a lot of people, when they think of bullying, have that image of a kid getting pushed into a locker, and that still happens, but it's just not as much as the emotional and psychological and verbal abuse that a lot of students face today, especially with girls. We heard a lot about girls kind of going behind each other's backs and body shaming. That's a big issue that we heard, especially with boys body shaming girls. I was surprised by that. A lot of girls said that they have been body shamed by boys in the past few weeks. Also, social media is a huge factor today, and I think that the reason that there might be such a lack of basic education about bullying is because it's so different from 5 or 10 years ago, because there is now social media, and I remember in 7th grade, the social media platform that was the one a lot of students used was AskFM. And I don't know if that's around anymore, but basically what AskFM is you create an account and you have people ask you questions and then you answer them. But a lot of the time, students would just write really horrible remarks and say, oh, you're just like, you're unattractive, like, you're hooking up with so many guys, you're a whore, like, stuff like that. And I personally never created an AskFM because I knew I was very vulnerable to being hurt again, and I didn't want to put myself in that position. And that was one of the things that we told students, is when you're bullied, there are very few places where you have control, and this is one of them. Social media is one of those areas where you have the control not to go on the app, you have the control not to open that direct message, and as much as it may be like a sacrifice right now, in the long run, it's going to benefit you in ways that you can't imagine. So we also, once we got into our small groups, I talked with girls about what they think parents just don't understand and what their misconceptions and what they can do. And one of them was that, like I said, I was terrified of going to my parents about my own bullying experiences, and they didn't find out like the majority of it until last year when I spoke and my teacher told them with my permission. But so they just fear going to you and being rejected and saying, well, you just have to deal with it. And I heard multiple girls who said they have gone to their parents and they say deal with it. And they said, well, we did deal with it and it was fine. It ended up being okay and we ended up working it out. But at that point, being rejected felt like the most awful thing that they had ever gone through, because the one area that they thought was going to be most supportive wasn't. And it's also, they said, this is where a large disconnect is because when they go for advice or they go to listen, there's such a disconnect because of the age gap. And because bullying has shifted in ways that parents can't relate to, they just give advice that may have been good for a generation ago, but is no longer solid advice for them. Another thing is that you can be observant. I know my parents were very observant, and that's probably why they were so proactive. But if you notice a change in your students' diet or how their attitude towards school, or how they interact with friends, like I know I never wanted to go out on weekends. I stayed up a lot just because I didn't want to be in those situations. That says a lot about who your student is. Another thing is one girl specifically told me a story about where the only response she ever got was it gets better. And it is true, it gets better, especially within high school. But when you just wait for it to get better, it has the opportunity to get worse. And when she waited for it to get better, it actually got about 10 times worse, where the interactions that started as pretty minimal became very, very large and omnipresent, and she had to just wait through it until it got better. So I would just say, don't just wait and watch your student be hurt over and over again. Be proactive and take charge, and also just listen to your student and listen to what they're going through and be sympathetic to that. The last thing that I'm going to say before I go is I think that it's just so important to educate your students about what being mean and what being nice is, and how you can kind of ingrain that within students' minds. I always had very deep talks with my parents about what that difference is, and I think that was so impactful to me because after I was bullied especially, I never wanted somebody to feel the pain that I felt. And if you have that talk with your student, I think they'll understand how severe some bullying can be and how severe those ramifications can be, because sometimes you just don't understand until you go through it. Also, I think one of the most important things that gets overlooked is student self-esteem, because that sometimes causes it, and it can actually get a student out of it too, is their self-esteem. And especially within LCHS, there are so many great programs and so many great areas where students can bolster their self-esteem and find their passions. And I know, like with concert choir and with Bridge, I am so passionate about them, even with politics, that I'm so secure in my own being, and I'm so happy with who I am now that I would never need the opportunity to tear somebody else down to make me better. So if a student has such a high self-esteem, they won't feel that need anymore. So, thank you guys so much. Your students were great, by the way, for the most part. They were great. Yeah, I'll keep it.
So next up we have, thank you, Bonnie, that was amazing. Next up we have our associate principal from the high school, Mr. Cardinal. He's going to speak a little bit about developmental assets. I talked a little bit about it earlier, but we do a lot of that work in the middle school during our homerooms. Without further ado, Mr. Cardinal.
Thank you, Dr. Gold. Most of the evenings that I'm lucky enough to speak to groups of parents about, I spend my time usually focused on matters related to curriculum or program development. Perhaps you've come to one of our math nights where we talk to you about the Common Core. Maybe you've come and seen us where our students in athletics, and you've seen my colleagues, Mr. McBee, Dr. Gold, Ms. Hazlett. But tonight I want to talk to you about something very, very different than that. I think if Ivani's talk reminds us about anything, is our students, of course, come to school and go through 6 periods a day to learn enumerated curriculum. But I don't know about you. I'm not sure how much my mind would be in the game if I was feeling some of the things that Ivani's bravery just allowed us to hear. Raw, candid, honest. When we think about how we educate the entire child, that's a phrase in education that we hear often, the whole child. We oftentimes relate then, or think about as educators, to the difference, or the different hidden curriculum. Not the explicit curriculum or the causes of the Civil War, stoichiometry and chemistry, or the Pythagorean theorem, or whatever it is your kids are doing. When we talk about the hidden curriculum, it's those values, those sensibilities, those intelligences that we want to encourage and foment in your children. And Dr. Gold and his staff have done a wonderful job to really live that talk in bringing to the middle school and setting a model for us at the high school of how we can bring developmental assets alive in the lives of your children. If you were a group of students right now, which of course I know you're not, I would ask you just, some vocabulary question. Well, what's an asset? I would probably play with them and say, all right, I'll race. I'm going to use this book that has words in it. You don't know what it means. It's called a dictionary. You can Google it, and we'll race and see who gets there fastest. And I already have it up on my phone. I actually looked at the dictionary in my office. And assets defined as a valuable quality, thing, or person. And I want to share with you tonight 40 of them that a research-based program looked into what are those thriving behaviors, what are those qualities that allow students to be successful at school, develop emotionally thriving habits, and then perhaps even maybe more importantly, stay away from those injurious, risk-taking behaviors. This small talk will try to answer 4 essential questions, and they're up on the screen. I'm not sure this picture works. I'd like to think that it does. We know that the clothes that children wear, while not patchwork like this, and if you can see the numbers up here, they're numbered 1 through 40. But I would imagine you and I would partner very, very well with one another, and we would agree with a great degree of certainty that if you, the individual, and us, the collective, could ensure students' emotional well-being and success at school, if we could start coloring each of these patches in, each of these assets in, and we could predict thriving behaviors, the more that we did, we would say, that's the kind of program for me. How can I get involved? What can I do? The good news, folks, is you can do a bunch. The remarks that I'm making, everyone, and I very much encourage you to take this. You don't have to read it right now. But please make sure on the way out, when you're over at those doors, you pick up one of these handouts. This is our 40 Developmental Assets Program from the Search Institute. You can see the research methodologies about how many kids were surveyed, when they were surveyed, and look at some of the outcomes of that research about thriving behaviors relative to the number of assets and so on. So we ask the question, what makes up a child? We know it's the experiences, the relationships, the activities, those sensibilities, those intelligence that they develop. All right. So let's get into what is that valuable thing that they possess or can possess with our influence, right? Those developmental assets are those thriving behaviors, those beliefs that they have about themselves, born of their experience. The Search Institute breaks them down into 2 broad categories. Assets that are born of external experiences and those things that come from inside. We know that it's a research-based approach and that these 40 assets lead to healthy development. If you were to turn to the handout, if you happen to pick it up, and I'll just kind of walk you through it, you can see that the assets are broken down in the interior cover, and they're broken down in 2 broad categories, the external and the internal. Again, you can look at this a little bit later. But those external assets of support, empowerment, creation of boundaries, expected boundaries and expectations, constructive use of time, help shape this healthy and thriving behavior. And the internal assets of commitment to learning and others help students have a sense of efficacy and confidence as they move through what we know can be a very challenging experience at school. All right, let me kind of deconstruct this just a little bit more. If we take one of those external assets of support, we come to the sum total of 40 assets when we see that under the domain of support, we recognize that that's about the kind of degree of empowerment that a student feels from her or his experience, the boundaries and expectations that are placed upon them by those that are in their lives that love and care for them, here at LCHS 7, 8, and 9, 12, and at home, in the community. And that they have the expectation of a constructive use of time. And then that goes into what you as the individual and we as the many are able to shape and foment in the lives of our young folks. We take one here, this caring school climate. When Dr. Gold and his staff says we're coming out at lunch to see kids, to interact with them, when we walk as administrators through the halls and we greet the students by name, when we see our teachers at the door during passing period to welcome students in and create that invitational learning environment, our kids hopefully know, even when the days get really, really rough, like Ivani shared with us a little bit ago, that they have some kind of adult ally on campus. That Mr. Cardinal at the high school, Dr. Gold at the middle school, the counselors, secretaries, janitors, other administrators, librarians, care for the well-being of kids, that they're not just some faceless, unknown entity to us, but dear little ones on a journey of learning that sometimes runs some pretty rocky road in the emotional and social domain. We see from the Search Institute's research that there's this strong correlation between the number of assets that a student is able to develop through her or his experiences and a connection to I'm going to switch that. The fewer assets that a student is able to develop links pretty high to this risk-taking behavior. Where we see 0 to 10 assets in gray, right? Alcohol use, violence, drug use, sexual activity. But then when we see the more assets developed, a decline in this risk-taking behavior. And then the thriving indicators linked to the development of more assets in our young people. If this were a curriculum talk tonight, I'd share with you that your students are asked each day, particularly in math, to engage in something that I suspect you never were asked to do when you were in school. I certainly wasn't. And that's engage in some private reasoning time, a phrase which simply describes that we're going to give you an opportunity to fall silent, and that's completely okay and sanctioned as an essential part of learning to kind of inventory where you're at. So it's going to be awkward. And because we're being videotaped, I'm not going to let it go too terribly long. But conduct your own inventory real quick. Who was there for you when you were young? Who developed in you those assets that allowed you to become efficacious professionals, parents, successful folks? I started wearing glasses in the 3rd grade. I know. That got really heavy, Mr. Carpenter, and I don't understand how wearing glasses in the 3rd grade relates at all. I started wearing glasses in the 3rd grade because that's my teacher, Mrs. Feller, noticed that little Jimmy was squinting at the board, and I can't tell you, even though I saw her yesterday still, how in the world it happened to line up that my 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Feller, and my parents had the same eye doctor's insurance. These are things now that I think about as an adult that I never did. And when I went to the eye doctor, my mom happened to drive my teacher, who miraculously got an appointment at the same time. And if I could see out there, I know some of you contact wearers, the house lights are up, I can't quite see exactly into your eyes. It'd be weirder if I did. See? If you've been to an eye test, you know you put your face to that thing and they blow the air in. It's kind of scary. I did that holding my 3rd grade teacher's hand. The only reason why I was at the eye doctor. And though she never said it, I absolutely knew it. It's because she loved me. I'm probably here and never left school because I knew that someone at school loved me. And I think back on her, she wouldn't have had the vocabulary building assets in me. But she absolutely did. She gave me an unflagging sense of support. She was absolutely there for when I needed her. She partnered with my parents powerfully. And while she encouraged me day in and day out to know that ideas matter, she also told me it didn't matter what my ideas were, because she loved me as a person. Now, we have that power over the young people in our lives. Perhaps we're working with scouts, perhaps we're coaching, perhaps we drive our own students and their friends around. Opportunities in each of those instances to make assets. Because finally, this work is rooted in core beliefs here at Locking F 7, 8, and 9, 12. And if we take the phrase or quote from Dr. Comer, who's on the Yale faculty, We recognize that no significant learning occurs without a significant relationship. I could light myself on fire, I could burn the house down every day, I could have CGI to teach the cause of the Civil War. But if my kids don't know firstly that I deeply care about their well-being, personal and academic, that is going to be a tough lesson to teach. And then we also recognize, born of this research, and it guides us in developing that whole child, that a student's asset levels are twice as important in predicting academic achievement. This is a stunner to me. This is an absolute stunner, and I submit to your good reason. A student's asset levels are twice as important in predicting academic achievement as demographic factors such as gender, family composition, socioeconomic status. But if we can build these young people, we know we build efficacious, confident young folks ready to take on the myriad challenges that are here. Don't know to what degree I've answered these 4 questions for you. Tried to. But want to encourage you, please, if you haven't already, take this. Developmental assets is something that we're doing every day here at Lock and Young to try and equip your young folks with the skills and sensibilities, right, and influences for them to be successful in all the domains that they're required to have here at school. We want to welcome up Dr. Melissa Johnson right now. Thank you. I should have said I should want to welcome up my esteemed colleague, Dr. Jericho.
So I just want to make sure that we know who's talking to you. And so Dr. Johnson, I want to just read her bio real fast so you know who you're speaking with. Dr. Johnson is a licensed psychologist, is the founder of the CEO of the Institute for Girls Development in Pasadena, California, an expert on child and teen development with a master's in education and a doctorate in counseling psychology. She has worked with children and teens for over 30 years. At the Institute, Dr. Johnson and her team deliver strength-based therapy, inspiring educational programs, and consultation with schools and districts to help create positive school climate. Dr. Johnson's approach is raising and mentoring girls, draws together contemporary research in neuroscience, mind-body health, and evidence-based interventions in mindful and social and emotional intelligence. Her curriculum, Stand Up and Speak Out, empowering girls for girls' friendships, the central guide for educators, youth program leaders, and others who work with girls is also available, tools for mentoring young girls. So please welcome up Dr. Johnson, and please give her your attention. Thank you.
Get my props together here. First of all, it's such an honor to be on this stage with you tonight, talking about engaging in such an important conversation. I actually feel so honored to be following through such great speakers who've shared moving stories and important information. And it's very similar to the information that I want to share, so that feels very validating as we get going here. I want to get a sense of who is in the room in terms of your kids. How many? So I know you probably all have middle schoolers, at least most of you. How many of you also have elementary school kids? Right. And how about preschool, high school, and college? Okay. All right. Great. So the conversation, and I love how it's been framed repeatedly this evening. The conversation is, it's about bullying prevention, and it's way bigger than that. It's about how do we live in the world together? How do we connect with our shared humanity? How do we engage in kindness? How do we It's about those things. So the 40 developmental assets are a fantastic way of building those skills through the with all the external support and building those internal resources for kids. I'm going to give you an additional framework for that. Because what we really want to do, all of us, is to help our kids have the skills, the relationship skills that they need to be caring and confident and capable in life. I really love the work being done by CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. Some of you may know Daniel Goleman's work. A number of years ago, he wrote the book Emotional Intelligence, which really changed the conversation about what intelligence is as we discuss it in this country. And he followed it with a book some years later on social intelligence. Well, things really have taken off, and social and emotional learning and social and emotional intelligence is a big conversation among educators, psychologists, and others. This is from the CASEL website, where you will find many resources and program descriptions, lots of research reviews. It's become like a clearinghouse for work in the arena of social and emotional learning. And you can see here 5 quadrants of skills. So along with the developmental assets, this is another model of thinking about skills. We're big into skills tonight, which is so important. So self-awareness, being able to know what one is feeling, knowing what one is experiencing, self-management, and what do we do with those big feelings that come up? The anger, the hurt, the disappointment, the jealousy. What do we do with that? Self-management skills help us to manage those big feelings effectively. Social awareness. How do we see what other people may be experiencing and have an experience of empathy, perhaps, or compassion? And then those relationship skills. How do I communicate that I do see that you're hurting right now and I do care about you? So, and then how do I make decisions about that? And what some of the ways that we see kids struggle, I was thinking about so many different stories today and yesterday as I was thinking about this evening. Thinking about a boy who sees one of his really good friends teasing a younger kid. So he's got the social awareness to know that something not good is going on here. And he's aware enough of himself to know he feels really uncomfortable, really unsettled. He's not sure what to do with those feelings, and not sure relationally how he might respond, but he's got a decision to make. He could walk away, or he could say to his buddy, hey, knock it off. That is not cool. A girl really hurt by her friend, feeling really angry. And maybe she's aware that she's really angry, or maybe she's not. Maybe those big feelings are just getting the best of her and she doesn't even have a name for it. She knows how to hurt her friend well. And she has enough relationship skills to know that if she starts a rumor or shares a really private secret from her friend, that's going to cause pain. So she has a decision to make. She has a decision to make. She can be aware of her anger and say, I need to tell my friend that really made me mad when she did that. Or she might go ahead and start that rumor because she really doesn't know what else to do with her anger. These are the struggles that our kids are dealing with every day. They may be on the end, the bystander side, the one who's being mean, or the one who's being the target. They also might be being the spoon, or the one who's fueling the fire, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But this is the world that we're working in when we're helping our children learn the skills they need to navigate. And this is lifelong learning. This is lifelong learning. I'm still working on this stuff. I don't know about you, but I'm still working on this stuff. We talk a lot about the cruelty that happens in kids' friendships. And one of the things that also happens in kids' friendships are amazing and beautiful and supportive and empowering things. So it's important to shine the light on that. When we see the resilience of kids working together, accomplishing something together, acting in kindness, doing some of the work that the bridging program is doing, that the peer counseling program is doing, let's shine the light on that. That's a way to make a fantastic difference, is not noticing, yeah, there are tough things that happen, and let's shine the light on the resilience that we see kids engaging in, and let that be a model. Let me go back for a second. There are a couple other ways there are so many ways to support relational resilience in our kids, and I'm going to talk about a few of them, but staying connected, staying in conversation, supporting their mentoring relationships, and being able to ask for help, modeling asking for help, encouraging them to be able to ask for help are all key. We know a lot about aggression and conflict, and we're still learning. Early research on aggression in children found that boys were aggressive and girls were not. We know that's not true. That was the early research done using a very narrow definition of aggression. Physical aggression, direct verbal aggression, which girls can engage in. And when the research definitions of aggression expanded to include things like social aggression, aggression that can cause harm to friendships, that can hurt others' social standing, we began to learn more not only about girls' aggression, but about boys' aggression. The most recent research on social and relational aggression found that both boys and girls engage in that type of aggression in equal parts. It's harming others through purposeful manipulation and damage of their peer relationships. And what that looks like when you're in preschool, because actually social aggression has been found to start as early as age 3. And I have gotten many calls from many preschools to come in and talk about this. It looks like you can't be in our Magic Ponies Club today. You cannot be in our Magic Ponies Club. All right. Exclusion, right? All right. Now, the difference between preschool and middle school is that when you're in preschool, you come back to school the next day, and no one remembers who was in the Magic Ponies Club, and it's a fresh start, and it's a new day, and it's all good. When you're in middle school, not so much. Another nuance to be aware of with social and relational aggression is that as kids get older. It includes romantic relationships and bringing harm to them. So starting rumors about people's romantic interests, flirting with somebody's partner, and on and on and on. And all of these things can happen in person and online because kids are online a lot. 92% of teenagers are online every day. 24% say that they are online almost constantly. Almost constantly. 71% are on Facebook. 50% are on Instagram. And 40% are on Snapchat. It's a lot of online life. A lot happens there. Kids can be aggressors, and I use the word aggressor rather than bully because sometimes it is bullying, and sometimes it's not. And it's important to be aware that even if your behavior, even if a teen's behavior or a child's behavior doesn't rise to the level of bullying, that's not how we want to be in the world. And we want to help our kids have alternatives to that. I also use the word target rather than victim because we don't want to perpetuate a victim mentality. I have the word bystander here, and I really should say bold. It could say bystander, but I am a big advocate of being a bold bystander. And many of the bully prevention curriculum today are really focusing on giving kids the skills to be the bold bystander, or as it's sometimes referred to, be the upstander. Be the one who can speak up and stand up to make a difference. Include the person who has been hurt. Include them when they've been excluded. And finding their tools for taking a variety of actions so that really there's something that everyone can do to be a bold bystander in some way. And then there's the spoon who stirs the pot. Perhaps unintentionally even. 3 girls, best friends, 2 are in a fight. The other one wants to help. This is what often the impulse is to help. So to speak to one of them and hear their story and to support them and validate them, and then to take that information and in an effort to help, share it to the other person. Oops, that didn't work so well. Now this friend has shared a bunch of stuff and a lot of feelings, and what's going to happen next? Well, maybe I need to go and talk to my friend over here about it, and talk to my friend over here about it, and my friend over there about it. Oops. A group of boys, one of them's really hassling another, and the others gather around. Are you going to take that? Are you going to take that? What are you going to do about that? The spoon that stirs the pot, fueling the fire. Helping kids have an awareness of the roles that they may find themselves in. And I say roles because in the morning before school, they may be the target. At brunch, they might be the bystander. At lunch, they might be the spoon. And after school, they might be the aggressor. And maybe they find themselves in these different roles throughout the day, multiple times. We most often hear about the times that they find themselves in a target position, but being a bystander can be really uncomfortable and grader told me once her favorite role was being the spoon who stirred the pot. She loved it. And I asked her why. I thought this was a wonderful opportunity for me to learn from her, and I asked her to tell me about it, and she said, I love the power and I love the attention. And I said, is there more? She said, yeah. At the end of the day, the part I don't like, the part I really don't like is that at the end of the day, everyone is mad at me. Everyone's mad at me. So, lots of self-awareness, that girl, right? Good skills there. We're still trying to find her way into making more effective decisions and managing those feelings. What can parents do? I really loved what you shared about just paying attention, observing, watching what your kids are going through. And you said all the things I was going to say about that. That watch for those changes. Does your child not want to go to school? Are those tummy aches coming up and they're wanting to come home? Is there a drop in grades? Are they not spending time with friends that they used to spend time with? Are they anxious, depressed, irritable, angry? Noticing those changes and being able to stay in conversation, figure out what's going on, is so vital. I'm going to whip through these things because I think the time is moving along, right? Okay. All right, so here's the juicy part in terms of some of the skills. And self-regulation is really key. Being able to do the management of those big feelings. I think about this glitter ball as a nice metaphor that when we are distressed, when our kids are distressed, it's like this glitter ball. It gets shaken up. It gets shaken up by life. And it's hard to see clearly, think clearly, feel clearly until the glitter settles, until we're able to calm and settle our nervous systems. And in order to be the best we can be, to be able to respond and not react to what our kids are telling us, we need to be able to manage our own regulation, to find our way, whether it's breathing, taking some deep breaths before we sit down for that conversation, or jumping on the treadmill and working off some steam before the conversation, whatever it is, finding our ways and helping our kids find their ways. Because sometimes, for many reasons, and again, I think you described them so well, why do teenagers not and preteens not talk to their parents? There's so many reasons. And sometimes when they're distressed, there aren't even the words, right? It's that glitter ball. So being able to help our children, just as we help ourselves, develop those skills for settling our own nervous systems. And you might think about the ways your own children do this right now. Is it hanging out with the cat or the dog? Is it listening to their music? What is it that they do to self-soothe and to calm and to settle their nervous systems when they're super distressed, when their glitter ball is just a swirling mess? And you want to encourage that. You want to encourage those skills because this will be such a gift to them and will allow them to engage in conversation with you once they're calmer and they've been able to settle their nervous systems. Being able to keep the perspective that we grow through conflict is key, because when our kids are suffering, we want to do anything and everything that we can to help them not suffer. And we will. We will do so so much. We will do what we can, and there's going to be suffering. There's going to be hard times. So knowing how to have the external resources and the internal resources to navigate it is key. Focus on strengths. Shine the light on allies, compassion, cooperation. Validate kids when you see them working together. Validate them when they're effectively expressing their feelings and being assertive, having that courage. And know that they have ways that they are going to be able to effectively they're going to be able to figure some of this out with your support and the support in their lives. Have that confidence. Be a role model. Notice when you're gossiping. Notice what you do with your anger and your friendship challenges. You know they are watching you. You know it. So think about the ways that you're a role model and be able to apologize. There's a beautiful quote that says, in many families, the magic word is please. In our house, it was and is, I'm sorry. Being able to role model that, so key. There's so much that we can do, and we're going to hear more about it now. So I'm really excited to hand the microphone back to Jarrett and move on to the next speaker.
Thank you very much. So next up, like I told you guys earlier, is that tomorrow, all day, our 8th graders will be going through an activity where there will be small school 3 and small school 4 will be split up. One will be in the cafeteria, one will be in the South Gym. There'll be 2 people from, we call the Ovation Company. Jeff is one, and Stu is the other who's flying in tonight from Seattle. And they're going to be doing a full day activity with the 8th graders around some of the concepts we're talking about. I think there's a lot of fun involved, some games involved, but a lot of learning involved. So we're really excited. For last year, Jeff came out and did a keynote speech to our students. And because our students liked him so much and we thought it would be so impactful, the PTA was kind enough to help us purchase a full day with him and Stu. So Stu will be doing a keynote to our 8th graders, because our 8th graders this year already heard Jeff last year. Jeff will speak to our 7th graders, and I'm excited to see what the day holds, because it's going to be a lot of fun for our kids, but a great learning experience. I can't pronounce his last name, and he told me I can introduce him however I want. So this is Jeff, the bearded man from the Ovation Company. Thank you very much, and do you want to give a couple words?
That's cool. He was like, can I just read this part? And I was like, no, they'll die. That's terrible. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm Jeff, or Geoff, as you can see it's spelled. I'm from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I live up in the mountains, and all the kids tomorrow will call me Sasquatch. So that's who I am, and my best friend Stu and I, we get the privilege to work with your children tomorrow. I get to work with the 7th graders, and then Stu gets to work with the 8th graders, and then we both get to work with the 8th graders throughout the day. And really what we're going to do is we're going to play, we're going to have fun. We're going to talk about what it's like to help each other and support each other. And we do all of this through play. And so basically our day is, if you came in the morning, you'd be like, what? They're just sitting in the bleachers, they're laughing hysterically, what's going on? And that's part of it, is play, laughter, joy, sharing those moments where, oh my gosh, you laughed so hard you almost peed yourself. Those are good moments. And when they share those moments, when other things come along that are more difficult and challenging, they go, wait, remember that one time we laughed so hard we almost peed ourselves? Yeah, that was awesome. Let's be nice to each other. Okay, cool. Right? And it's so crazy, but what happens is that we go from all these crazy things that we do in the morning, and then we transition to, well, great, we got to know each other a little bit. Let's get to know each other in a smaller group. And so we'll ask them questions, and we'll do activities that involve everybody at the same time. And at the very end of the day, we do something we call practicing kindness. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of random acts of kindness. I do not believe in random acts of kindness. I think they're intentional. Every single time you meet a human being on this planet, it is a choice to be kind or not. There's nothing random about it. So we have them practice kindness. And it's very simple. They're gonna walk out of here tomorrow, your kids are gonna have all these little colored, little pieces of string around the wrist. And you can ask them about it, and every single time they get one of those, somebody says something kind to them. And for some of them, it might be you know what, you're one of my best friends in the whole wide world. Thank you for always taking care of me. I love you like a brother or sister. I will always have your back. That's a pretty awesome one to get. Some of them might be like, you know what, I totally screwed up. I just want to apologize. Please forgive me. Those are some of the most powerful ones. If your kids come home tomorrow and they give you one, that's pretty awesome too, because you know what? They're going to say something nice to you. And we hear stories all the time about, oh my gosh, this little piece of string meant so much to me. I'm like, really? It's a piece of string? Oh, it was the words behind it. It was somebody intentionally practicing kindness. And when they walk out, you can see all the things that were happening that day. And it's pretty cool. And so for me, we are so lucky to get to work with your kids. We're so excited. But for you guys as parents, I'm assuming that, I think you said you asked how many were elementary, middle school, that kind of stuff. Where's my middle school parents? Awesome. Okay, and high school parents? Okay. When you ask your children, what'd you do at school today? What's the most popular answer? Nothing. Here's a trick. The next time you say that, and you ask them, what'd you do at school today? And they say nothing. Look at them and say, excellent, tell me more. And it all of a sudden gives them the opportunity to think about it and wait, oh yeah, we actually did do stuff today, didn't we? Ask them what it looked like, felt like, smelled like, tasted like. Because they'll be like, dude, you had something at school at lunch today? I have no idea what it was. I think it was seagull. It's awesome. If you give them the opportunity, that is a great way to do it. I love that your home, your word was, I'm sorry. Parents, another great way to get your kids to actually engage in a conversation with you, get them in the car, unplug everything, and then pull up someplace and say, I'm so sorry. And they're gonna be like, yeah, you are. I made a mistake. I'm gonna try and do better next time. And then they're gonna be all in. They're like, yeah, you're darn right you made a mistake. You know it. You know what you did, don't you? And then you're gonna be like, yes, and now I'm gonna do better. And here's what I'm gonna do to make it better. And then you can institute all the things that you thought, well, wait a minute, maybe some of those 40 assets, maybe you can institute some of those things. For me, personally, I have 2 little boys. I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. And my 7-year-old is built like Bruce Lee. He has 8-pack abs. He's awesome. He is like this ripped little dude. He's amazing. His brother is 3 years younger than him and built more like the Incredible Hulk. He doesn't have a neck. He's got traps. It's awesome. It looks like he's always carrying suitcases around. They're totally different, and I love them so much. They're amazing little guys. And every night that I get to be home, because I'm on the road about 140 days a year, and every night when I'm home, we practice positivity. So every night, we say that we choose things. They call them the I choose statements. And it's just building positive mental attitude, and it's building fortitude and resilience. And every night it goes like this. I choose happiness. I choose kindness. I choose to be an athlete. I choose to be a leader. And because I have small boys, I choose to sometimes pick my nose. Had to be added. And then we do the I am statements. I'm loved, I'm cared for, I'm a gift from God, I'm awesome. And I know that they work, because one of their favorite movies has a scene where the main character, a cartoon, is listening to music and she's had a really bad day, and all the songs are sad and depressing, and one of the songs says, I'm a loser. And every time they hear it, they go, oh, Dad, she shouldn't listen to that because that's going to make her think she's a loser. Practice these things with your kids. Have them say positive comments themselves. Get them in a positive mental attitude. Talk to them. Check in with them. Unplug. I actually, this year, I unplugged from Facebook and all social media. And in the last 6 months, guess how many important things I've missed? 0. It has been awesome. It is so amazing what happens when we actually unplug from these little crazy devices and actually plug in to the humanity that's around us. And it's one of those big things that I see more and more every single year I go out on the road. More and more kids are so disconnected with the actual human beings that they share space with every single day because they're so plugged into an electronic device. And I don't know how to solve it other than give me that thing. Oh, cool, you're on Snapchat, me too. But I'm not. Here's the thing. Just talk to your kids, instill them, let them know that you love and care about them. Check in with their social outlets if they have them, if they're on social media. Check in with those things, get their passwords. If they don't, great, that's my iPad. Great, that's my cell phone. Great, those are all my electronics. Thank you, you were just renting them, they're mine. You know what, it's everything you can do to be an ally and an advocate for your child, but I think you also said it, we also have to let them know that guess what, there's gonna be pain, there's gonna be failure, and it's also important to let them fail so that they actually learn in a safe environment, like school or like with our families and parents, so that when it happens out in the real world, it's not devastating to them. It's resilience. Let them fail a little bit so they go, oh, that sucks. Yeah, what did you learn from it? How do we do it better next time? Great. I think, Dr. Gold, you have the Thomas Edison thing in there in your room on the wall. It says something to the effect that Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times. I think he said it, I didn't fail 10,000 times, I just learned 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. That's a positive mental attitude. You learn from failure. So I get to work with your kids tomorrow. I'm so excited. Please ask them about what went on. And if they say nothing, say, tell me more. And then ask them about the furry people that they were like, there's a big furry guy, Sasquatch or something like that. Oh yeah, he was there, he's funny. Okay, cool. And then have them tell you about the day. So let's get it back to you guys so we can actually ask some questions.
I'm going to invite up a couple people. We're going to do a Q&A, so you feel free to ask questions. But everybody who spoke already, if you could please come up. I appreciate you guys up here. Along with Kim Loxley, who's a high school counselor, Rachel Zoe, who's also a high school counselor, Miss Brasha, who's a 7-8 counselor. You guys all want to come up. We have a couple microphones, and we'll take a couple questions, and then we'll be out of here. Yeah. So, there's no real structure to this, to be completely honest. Oh, Deputy, sorry. Deputy Matego as well. Sorry, sir. He's making fun of me for not remembering. Deputy Matego is our school resource officer. He's on our campus pretty much every day, working with our students in different capacities. But most of your students will know who he is. So, like I said, there's no real format to this. Are there any questions?
All right, everyone, thank you. Good night.
Yes, sir.
You were talking about the target. Do you guys also look at the aggressor, like see what's going on with them to help them out, like in the sense of the bridge thing you were saying you were doing? Like, do you help them as well? Yeah, talk to me.
So we do at the assembly when we were in. Okay. So at the assembly when we were in smaller groups, we would make little check marks next to names that we noticed were either acting kind of, I guess, restricted when they were talking to us, like they were hiding something, and if there was a name brought up about who their aggressor was, we'd check their name too. So we can look into them and see if they're going through issues too, because although we primarily work with high school students, in the last 2 years we have been trying to kind of integrate ourselves more within the middle schoolers because they don't have that peer counseling group that the high school does. So we definitely are going to look into them in the future and see if there's anything we can do to help them too, because we know they're dealing with issues as well.
And just from a school standpoint, when there's issues that come up from parents or from other people about bullying issues, it's one thing we're trying to do is keep confidentiality as well as we can. I wouldn't say we ever lie to students, but I think in the cases of bullying or people being bothered, sometimes we do. And we say a teacher overheard this happen because the student doesn't want to be called out, the victim, and we don't want to cause more stress for them. So sometimes we don't tell the students the complete truth, probably a better way than my room. We don't tell them the complete truth of how we heard about what happened. And our goal is to address it, to hold kids accountable as well, and for them to understand how to improve, how to get better, and if that means us setting up counseling appointments with them. Moving forward, one of the things me and the high school assistant principal met with a group called Action, and as we look into alternatives to suspension, one of the things when we have aggressive behaviors is that we're going to mandate, we're holding abeyance suspensions, and mandate them to go to either if it's drugs, NA or AA programs within Action, along with parents going. They have a behavioral one for aggressive behavior from students, where there's a mandate for the parent and for the student to go in lieu of the student being suspended. So that's another resource we have as we continue to transition to alternative to suspension. But yeah, we take into account the person's bullying as well. It's not just about supporting the victim, but also holding other people accountable as well.
I'll add to that from the 7-8 counseling perspective, because we are often the ones who receive a story or help me with this problem or whatever. I would estimate that probably 8 times out of 10, the person that was an aggressor is already a known entity, somebody we already have interacted with, have a relationship, already know their backstory. It's actually pretty rare to hear about a student that's like, oh, who's that? Oh, that student. I don't know anything about that student. What a shock, what a surprise. There's usually other things already going on. And I think it's also due to the fact that we get to know our students pretty well, even though there's a lot of them. There's 300-something students in each of our grade levels. There's 2 of us counselors, the other one's not here. We do get to know them pretty well within the first 6 months of school. And so by the time they're really moving along in junior high and they're telling us things, we've already sort of figured them all out by then. Makes it easier.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Yes.
So when a kid has problems being bullied, and that kid confides to his parents, and it's ongoing, 3 months maybe, and the parents feel frustrated and aggravated because most of the time the parent will only hear one side of the story. So we want to know what's going on the other side, from the other student. Can parents address this with the bully's parents?
So, it's a loaded question. I have a feeling it was coming. But, it's a tough situation. I think the first step is obviously telling the counselor or administration, and the parents have to give the school an opportunity to address it with the student first. And once we address it with the student and that behavior continues, I do think there's continual steps. I know when I talk to parents, if I feel like it's gone to a point to where we're not sure how to move forward, and there's no really hard evidence of what's going on, as opposed to there's no social media, it's kind of word of mouth, and we do have to hear both sides of the stories. I think keeping both parents informed is important. Having parents meet, I think that's up to them. And, I don't think that's something the school would in essence do, unless both parents were suggesting it or asking for it. But I do think it's important to give us an opportunity to address the situation with the specific student who's bullying, to get both sides of the story. Because a lot of the time, the parents have their child's side of the story, and they advocate for their children, which I agree with 100%. But, I think there does have to be a balance that understanding your student isn't necessarily telling the whole story. Right? There's always 3 sides of the story, right? It's the child, it's the victims, and the truth. There's somewhere in between usually. And, it's a tough situation. And, a couple years ago, 3.5 years ago, I didn't have any children, and I think my perspective is changing it. Now having 2 children, of if my child was being bullied or being bothered, I know I'd want to go straight with the child as well, right? But there's a way to go about it. There's a proper way to address it. And I think you have to trust the school and the administration to deal with it once you bring it to their attention with all the facts that are in front of you. Answer your question?
I've heard quite a few stories over the years of parents going to other parents, and it's mixed success, I would say. Sometimes it's actually the right thing to do, and it solves everything, and other times it blows up, and it's far worse. So.
And I do think that doing it between parents and parents is okay. I think once the school gets in the middle of that is where it gets very muddy.
I would only like to add on to that, I suppose. When Dr. Gold and I had the opportunity with several of you in the audience and some of our counselors to head up to Stanford for a Challenge Success conference, I was really amazed just to reflect that in the 9 years since these devices have really been around, how foundationally different social relationships have become. And as an educator, one of the things I very much encourage you to be thinking about is, and in all of that time that our children oftentimes are online in unfettered, unrestricted environments, where is the adult voice? I won't speak for these folks around, but certainly in all the years that I was in the classroom, I would make it a joke. I don't know what Facebook, I don't know what Snapchat is, I couldn't tell you what Instagram is. Those are not areas that I involve myself in. I actually call, because I'm not a millennial. And who's helping them navigate that kind of fire hose of information and an opportunity to engage in maybe anonymous, not so nice speak or speech. And that's something I think we really need to be mindful of. Just a small plug. Would you please ensure and join with your administrators and educators to create some kind of cell phone corral at home and ensure that these things never go into the bedroom at night, particularly after you go to sleep, and that they all come together in some family charging area, and everyone commits to that, you too, so you can actually talk. Because our kids, we know, need family time, they need downtime, they need playtime. And if you're on this, that's not what you get.
Yeah, and to that point, sorry, what did you want to say? So to that point that Johnson says, we heard a speaker speak, and one thing that resonated with me, because I'm a culprit to it as well, is I have a wonderful wife, and I sleep next to her every night, and right. And one of the things they said is that what's the first thing you reach for when you wake up? And I say most people in the audience said their cell phone, right? They reach over the cell phone to check the time, to turn off their alarm clock, whatever it is, that the first person you're reaching for is not your spouse. And that's obviously not for your children, but for you guys. But that's important to realize, and how it's really encompassed and taken over so many of our lives. And so me and my wife, since we got back from Challenge Success, we made a commitment to not, the first thing we reach for is not our phone. And I think, once again, all of my 3-year-old or 6-month-old don't see us in bed when we wake up, but the first person we reach for now is each other. And I think that's important to understand and to model as we get older. When I put my son to sleep, I don't have my phone in there anymore. It's trying to disconnect from that, as Jeff said, and Dr. Johnson said, and I'm sure the councils would agree to. Yes, sorry.
Sort of a little off topic, but cell phone. We're laughing at it, and my son was in middle school last year, and at his school, phones went off before they went into the building, and they were not allowed to come out until after school. So when I moved here, I was shocked that cell phones were allowed to be used in the classroom, between classes and at lunch. I mean, if we're talking about it at home, and now here it is allowed at school. I was just shocked.
I hear the point. We're all looking at each other, but no one wants to answer it.
I'm from Idaho.
What's that?
I'm from Idaho.
They don't have cell service in Idaho, so I don't know anything about it. No, I hear your point. I think as we move forward, I think we're going to look at a lot of our policies. I think we've gone down the rabbit hole, and I think it's hard to get out of it. And trying to find a way to correct that is a big issue. I think a bigger issue we have to be completely honest is how do we mandate what our students are doing at break and lunch? Kind of to your point, but talking about the Chromebooks and what they're doing, an average student is sitting back to back playing on Chromebook at lunch, not talking to each other.
Right.
And me and Ms. Jamie Lusatter, our Director of Technology, Jim, our counselors, we've all been part of these conversations, is how do we change that? Because we can't say you can't have a Chromebook out, because they say they're doing homework. And we're giving our children all of our homework on the Chromebooks, we can't tell them not to do it. So it's really balancing all those things. The cell phone issue, I don't have a good answer to. I think it's something we should reflect on and look at, and possibly even change policy. I'm not in disagreement with you with that. So I do think it's an issue that's on our campus, and it continues to be an issue as we've moved quick with technology, and we just got to make sure we have the policies and practices in place to make sure we're moving forward in the right direction. And that's practice what we preach.
One of the things that you guys taught for the incoming demonstrators for the older kids were to get involved. Getting involved was one of the biggest factors for having a happy experience we had tables out, but I asked my son about it, and he goes, well, it's at lunch, Mom, so we only have time to eat lunch, you know, there's no time to go look. So I think I've tried to look on the website, and maybe haven't taken a couple weeks, but it was definitely last year's list. So I don't know, is there a place where they can go, they can find, and I
Are
realize.
you talking about junior high clubs or high school?
Junior high, yeah.
Because junior high school does not have a club day at lunchtime. That's something that happens at the high school, so if you wouldn't
So
see
the
that
whole
at all.
get involved, Martin, how do they get involved?
There are clubs, and most of our 7-8 clubs are whatever pops up for the given year, whoever feels like starting a club and wants to do something. There's several clubs that are ongoing that teachers are in charge of, but every year we have new kids come forward saying, I'm going to have a chess club, how do I do it, and you know, that kind of thing. So I'm working on the club list to update it. There's not too many offerings this year. I think when the high schoolers are talking about get involved, or maybe it's the junior hires, the 8th graders also gave that message at the orientation.
Yeah, it's the orientation day.
Yeah, I think they're just asking them to get out of their comfort zone, and there are after-school sports and electives. They only get one a year, so there's not a lot of really space to totally burst out of into the junior high world and find a bunch of things to do. But between those 2 years in high school, it just steadily grows.
But, I mean, there are some clubs, there are after-school sports, there is ASB, the Associate Student Body. I've had students come to me about creating a lunchtime flag football team for the kids that didn't make the team, like intramural sports. So, you know, it's about trying to find ways to get involved that we have. Choir, drama, different electives where, you know, it kind of grows with them as they go through high school. And then really what Shannon's saying is get out of the comfort zone, make friends, and get involved and be part of your education.
Attend the dance after school. You know, don't be afraid to do those things. I would say that by 8th grade, if your son's a 7th grader, by 8th grade, I think there's a lot more opportunities because then there's the Builders Club at homeroom time. There's more specialized homerooms for 8th graders. It's just one of those things that steadily grows. So by the time you get to high school, they have a full-on club thing at lunchtime with about 40 clubs out there. So junior high, there's not as many clubs because they're only there for 2 years. So they established the chess club for 1 year, and then they're gone, and the chess club went away. And now the coding club is here because somebody wanted a coding club, and then that's gone. And then the Lego club. So it's whatever the thing du jour is.
So, in terms of constructive use of time and balancing, how are you, when kids have homework, how could they go and play? You know, how could they go and hang out with friends, or, you know, and especially when they have homework in sports? How does that? And then I know it probably gets worse in high school because we're in 7th grade.
Sure.
Is there a school?
Why don't we start with the high school, and then I'll take it after the high school. Our high school counselors try to speak to that.
I'm not gonna lie, it's very stressful at times, especially with the academic load at the school. I think there's a lot more academic involvement than most public schools. And so this year, especially with college apps, I'm feeling that more than ever. But there are certain areas where what I said to the 7th and 8th graders today was, if you develop good skills early in life, in 7th and 8th grade, and you carry those through 12th grade, you're going to be way more prepared than other students. I developed really good skills, I think, in freshman year. I would go home, go through the textbook, take notes, and then I wouldn't have to do that later in the week. And so there's ways that you can stagger your time, which if you prepare early enough and you don't procrastinate, then you do have 2 or 3 hours to yourself at the end of the night just to kind of decompress and do what you need to do to be emotionally okay and physically okay, I think. So it is a kind of difficult way to manage it, but it's possible.
Something important to look at too are the extracurricular activities that your student involves in stress causing or stress relieving. Because their extracurricular activities should be something they look forward to going to, something that they enjoy the other people there, so it's a social opportunity for them as well throughout their day. And are there too many of them? There's a lot of things you need to look at. And some students are moving so quickly that they don't have the self-awareness to really even think about, gee, I don't even think I like Girl Scouts very much. I'm not friends with any of these girls in the troop anymore. I don't want to do a Gold Award. Well, maybe it's time to pull the plug on that one and focus on the ones that you really are looking forward to going through so that they're not stressing you out. They're actually a decompression kind of thing to attend your activities.
I would add to that, as Ivana said, in high school, it does get more difficult, and I think the skills you were mentioning are what we would call time management skills. And parents can definitely support that and value that unstructured time, that playtime, and help them build that in. But we are getting more intentional about using time management and like Shannon said, not doing things because you're collecting trophies to put on a list for colleges later on, but you're choosing things and you're giving some things up. And so I think we're going to be more intentional about how to manage homework time and activities and teaching those skills that Avani had. That not everyone is developing so easily.
And just a little more to that is one of the things that Challenge Success when we were up at Stanford that came up with both the high school team and the middle school team is really reflecting on our practice as a school and what kind of homework we're giving, why we're giving it, is it too much, is it not enough, is it a teacher issue, is it a homework issue, is it a student issue, is it a parent issue, and trying to figure out where that balance is. And I think our teachers put a lot on our students. And is it wrong or is it right? I think that's still part of the debate that we're having. But I think the biggest thing that came up as clear as day with the high school and the middle school is being reflective of that practice and looking at it moving forward to see how homework plays a role in our students' education. Because to your point, I think our students do have to be more balanced, as I said, and I think we have a role in that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you can't talk to the teachers or anything. I mean, you know, you're dropping extracurricular, would you drop an extracurricular where you can't really, you know, have a balance with the education? I don't know. Does that make sense what I'm saying? I mean, like, you just kind of have to go with what's happening in school, right? In terms of homework and what's expected of them. Or
They do gain some control in high school over what kind of classes they take in the past.
We have a lot of conversations in the high school about course selection. A lot of conversations, and right now we're working with our seniors and preparing for their college applications. And I was saying to the seniors, I'm like, did you sleep in high school? And like, your resume was and she's like, well, I knew a couple of few hours a night. And so I was asking, like, do you have regrets? I need this input to share with the 9th graders and 10th graders and 11th graders. And she said, honestly, a couple of the AP classes were my regret. I loved them. I learned a lot. They were valuable, but the passion that she had, she's a dancer outside of school in another company, and just the value she had in that in the family, and she's going to continue to do it through college no matter where she ends up. And she said, it took away from enjoying some of that experience, and so it's really about course selection in the high school. And we talk about it. It is a school-wide issue, and we're competing with, when you're taking AP Euro, I try to take AP Euro. He's taking AP Euro, or better take AP Euro. And why do you really care about AP European history? And you know, and so we have these conversations instead of our AP Euro teachers. We have an information session, but it's this peer pressure, and so we're combating it on our end, and so that's really the parents is
So we're taking, in the idea of time, we said 8:30, so we're going to take one or two more questions. There's one in the back.
Yep. I was just wondering where you get all these ideas on how to talk to children, because as a student, as someone's child, I would just get decently upset with my mom if she was pressing me for an answer. Like, as he mentioned earlier, it seems like she's not taking my answer as valid as something like that. And as someone that deals with a lot of mental insecurities and such like that, it makes me uncomfortable to have to explain my full day to someone, something like that. And with your thing about technology, I don't agree with that. I'm sorry. It might be because I'm a millennial, but honestly, technology has become such a great tool for us, and I think that the fact that most baby boomers just completely discredit that and say, oh, our students are becoming so much less social. They're not. So, like, society hasn't changed that much. It's just, we have like these few little, I don't know, sort of.
I'll take the second part of the question, someone else take the first part. So the technology aspect, you guys can be on the stage, I agree with you. I mean, I have Twitter, I have Instagram, I don't believe in Facebook, that's besides the point. But, you know, I believe in technology. As anyone in this room could attest, my phone's always close to me. As parents could attest, I answer emails probably within 30 seconds half the time. And it's because I have my phone on me, it's part of my life, it's part of what I do. I think there does have to be a balance, though.
Mm-hmm.
I think there has to be a balance of being a child, being a student, and using technology for whatever you're using it for. So I think technology makes life easier. It's a part of our reality, it's a part of our future. but there still has to be a balance within how you use it. For example, I can't be on Instagram or Twitter, my personal Twitter, not school Twitter, my personal Twitter, when I'm at school, sitting in the office, right? So there has to be understanding of teaching students about digital citizenship, how to use technology, where to use it, and in the format that you use it in. For example, when I write an email to my superintendent, you know, I'm not using the word to, T-O, with the letter number 2. I think a lot of students don't understand that. And when we talk about technology, it's using it right and using it in the right manner, understanding the whole aspect of it. So I do think it makes life easier. I'm not necessarily against it, but I'm telling you, when I'm walking around campus and I see a group of 5 students sitting around not having a conversation on a regular basis every day, you know, I do find social aspect of life is very important. And it's balancing all those things when students aren't talking to each other or having that human connection with people and they live their life like this. I think it's important for us to understand how to balance those things. So like I said, I agree with the sense that technology is important, but there still has to be a balance about how you're using it and when you use it. The other part of your question, I wasn't going to answer.
Just really quick, I agree with you. I think there's definitely a disconnect between adults and younger people on how we view social media. I know for me personally, I use social media and it's impacted a lot of my interests. This year, not this year, but the past few years, I've become very interested in politics. And I think part of that reason is because I do have Twitter and I can see what happened 10 minutes ago or what Trump announced at 10:02 a.m. this morning.
Oh, God.
And, okay. So I do think that there's good ways in which it can be used because you get your voice out there. I know also I'm part of the Lens and we really actually do kind of all of our stuff is on social media because it's the best way to get our opinions out there, to be heard. So I definitely agree with you when you say that there are good aspects to it. Yeah.
So the other part of your question is that why do you have to explain your life to your parents?
Well, no, it's more that like I don't understand how like adults get all these ideas on how to talk to children without really like considering children. Like you kind of just think, oh, hey, I can, you know, like pressure my child into answering this, and it's like that's just going to make your relationship with your child worse. Like if my mom was pressuring me for an answer on like how my day was or something like that, it would seem as if she doesn't trust my answer and that my answer isn't technically valid to her and that she needs something stronger, and that would just make me lie to her, sort of.
I don't know, I think it's interesting because obviously you're a very intelligent young person.
Thank you.
That maybe you have to have that conversation with your mom and say, Mom, I really appreciate that you're trying to figure things out for me and help me out, and then this is how it really works for me, is that if you ask this question and I give you the answer, that's the answer. And I love you and I care about you and thank you for checking in with me. Thank you for caring enough to do that, but it sometimes is really frustrating for me. So if you put it into I statements like, when you do this, it really makes me feel this way, it makes me feel anxious, I want to be as open and honest with you as I possibly can, but when you pressure me to say more and more and more and more and more, I feel like you don't trust what I'm saying. And then maybe come up with, you know, hey, muskrat. That means I'm out, okay? I've had enough of this, I'm going to leave for a few minutes and then we'll come back and try again. But having that open conversation with your parent is a great place to start, and just, you know, first of all, appreciate what you do for me, Mom, thanks. And here's how we can move forward with it.
Yeah. Wait, really quickly, I'd also like to say, I know that you talked about how students are very stressed and such like that. A lot of what I've seen is due to parents sort of pressuring their children to take these classes and do better and stuff like that, but honestly, these kids aren't interested in stuff like that, and it's like killing them, it's deteriorating them by having all this forced pressure and all of that.
Everybody on this panel would agree with you 100%. And I think one of the things we keep talking about is having parent education evenings and parent education avenues to inform parents that you don't have to take 17 APs to go to Stanford.
Yeah. Or
to go to Cal, or Cal isn't for everybody, Stanford is everybody. I went to Cal State, and I turned out perfectly fine, right? So, you know, and 3 things came up with challenge success: homework, grading, and parent education. Because I think everyone that went up there, all 16 of us, including probably almost every adult on this campus, would agree 100% with what you said. So why don't you take one more question? And then,
I was going to just add that I think we discovered a lot, though, that students are putting pressure on themselves. We find a lot of parents who are not putting the pressure. They're like trying to talk their kids into not taking those classes. So we see both, and it's all the parts. It's the colleges, it's the getting more educated for students themselves and parents and the colleges and all of us working together.
We'll take one last question, right there, sir.
What about drugs, alcohol, all this stuff is going on, eventually kids want to tune out in 7th, 8th grade, are we looking at that?
Sure, I mean, I'm gonna tell you.
I feel like we've been pretty naive in the junior high lately. Like we haven't had kids growing up. Every group is different that comes in, and there's waves. And I've been a counselor for 13 years, I think now. So I've seen a few little waves go through, and I feel like lately kids are still the age they're supposed to be in 7th and 8th grade, and I feel very lucky with that in recent years. And I hope it's not me being naive and not seeing things that people are doing. But I feel like if any of that's going on, it's in very, very, very small secret populations. It definitely hasn't been any major issues with that in recent years.
It's actually one of my big speaking topics, and I do it throughout the city and at different church groups and different PTA meetings. So it's a whole different topic. It's out there. You can't say it's not. As far as on campus and stuff like that, the staff has really worked hard with the drug dog and education and all that. So we're not finding it. And even one of my guest speakers happened to be a student. He's even saying it's not on campus. It's at parties and things like that. And we've been being naive to say there's none out there. But there's big talks that we get on that. So.
Yeah, and I know the high school, I mean, coming from the high school assistant principal, and I can speak with some knowledge and being over discipline for many years before the other schools, I think drugs are a reality with our students. I think in Lac-Qui-Nassau specifically, drugs and alcohol and prescription medication are a reality to our kids. And I think to what Dr. Johnson and Jeff were saying, and what everyone else would agree to, is that having open lines of communication with your child is important. And being able to see signs of things and have resources for our students and having trust in our students to talk to you as parents or us as staff members. Because it's going on, it's issues on the weekends, and our students are doing it, informing students of what the repercussions are, whether it's law or whether it's brain damage. There's issues with drunk driving assembly the Bridge put on last year, every 15 minutes, which is a program we do every other year at the high school. It's a reality with our students, and I think informing them of what it is important as well. But I wouldn't be naive to say it doesn't occur at 7, 8, or 9, 12.
Well, I'm just saying, like, identifying if kids are being bullied, I don't think that would be a kid that would be susceptible to want to turn to drugs.
And that goes back to developmental assets and having people on our campus that our students can talk to and feel comfortable with and feel secure with and have the confidentiality to be able to talk to them. So,
and one more thing, it went real pleasant. We have this Red Ribbon Week where we talk about drugs and stuff like that. And one of the big positive things, we have the drug case out that shows all the different things. And a lot of the kids actually don't have any idea what's in there. And if we said, hey, we got this from here or there, they're very surprised. So there's a large portion of people that really are oblivious to it.
So I'd like to thank all the panel members, all the guest speakers tonight. If you have any questions or concerns, anyone on the screen is approachable. Please come up to us, send us an email, come by our office. We'll also try to post this online, the video. So thank you all for being here and have a great evening. And the Dodgers are winning 4-3.